Guys, good morning from southern Yunnan province in China. Specifically, we're in Jinghong, the main city here in the Xishuangbanna autonomous prefecture. Beautiful landscapes around here, beautiful rainforest. City itself is a bit over-commercialized, I think, and so are most of the scenic spots. But anyway, this river flowing rapidly down here is the Luang River. At least that's how it's known in China. It is better known by its other name, the Mekong. Today we're gonna follow this river all the way down into Laos. But we're not gonna do this on a boat. The river looks a bit unsafe. No, we're gonna take a train. Yes, there's a train that runs from China all the way down to Laos. The train connection is still fairly new. It was opened in late 2021, so I expect it to be in a very good condition, and I expect it to be on time as well, as all trains are in China. So let's head to the station and catch our train. I ordered a DD and soon was off to the station. This city is also called the Peacock City, as there are lots of peacocks in the gardens and parks around here. Restaurants have a peacock banquet, which is essentially a selection of different colorful meals. In the local Thai culture, peacocks are regarded as symbols of good luck and happiness. The city also had a lot of Southeast Asian vibes, much more than in Pu'er. 25 minutes after I had left the hotel, I arrived at the new Xishuangbanna railway station. This station was opened just 3.5 years ago in December 2021. It certainly looked very new and had a lovely outside area. Welcome to Xishuangbanna railway station. Gonna go in a second. I think I don't need a paper ticket. I think I can just use my passport for boarding, because it's like linked to my ticket, but to make sure I will ask in the ticket service center if I need a paper ticket or not. So let's do that, and then we'll head through security, because in China when you enter a railway station there's always a security. And then we'll wait for a train which will depart in just over an hour. And so I went into the service center, where they indeed printed me a paper ticket. With that in hand, I went through security and into the station. And we're inside in the international waiting area, waiting for our train to Laos. Security was super fast, took only a minute, and it was good that I went to the ticket office, because that guy at the counter printed me a paper ticket. I'm not sure if it was actually needed though, because when I entered the station I just scanned my passport and then the gate opened, and I didn't have to use the paper ticket at all. But in any case, maybe it's useful in Laos. Station looks nice. It's kind of crowded, even though there are lots of empty seats around here in the back. And I checked if there are any tickets left for the train to Laos, and there are none. It's completely sold out. So if you want to do this trip, you should book it as soon as bookings open, because this train is sold out every day. I'm gonna be in first class today. Well, Chinese first class, don't expect much. It's a 2-2 configuration, but it's a bit nicer than second class, because second class is a 3-2 configuration. It will take around, 4.5 hours from here in Xishuangbanna down to Luang, Prabang, and that includes an hour of immigration checks on the Chinese side and the Laos side. Quite excited to take this ride. I've been wanting to do this ever since I found out about this line. That whole railway line is part of a bigger project to connect China with Singapore in the end. So the plan for the far future is that maybe one day you can take a train all the way from China through Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, down to Singapore. Anyway, boarding is in about half an hour, so let's wait for a bit and then get going. The boarding gates opened about 20 minutes before departure, and I headed up to the platform. My seat was in car number 8, but I have to confess I was a bit confused finding out where that car would stop. Essentially, I walked up and down the platform, and once I found it, the train just pulled into the station. Turned out I was at the end of the train, so let's board and see what it looks like. As mentioned earlier, I had chosen first class, which in Chinese train terms means a 2-2 configuration. The seats were pretty comfortable though. Only the legroom was a bit limited. I should point out that this train came all the way from Kunming, so most passengers had actually already been on board. We pulled out of the station exactly on time and started our journey towards Laos. Welcome aboard the China-Laos Railway on the section from Xishuangbanna down to Luang, Prabang. This is second class, actually quite comfortable. The seats are very well cushioned. They even give you a pillow, and the two people on the other side are staring at me for recording. But anyway, yeah, should be a good ride all the way down to Luang Prabang, and we'll get there by 4 p.m.-ish. There were lots of tunnels along the way, but in between the route offered some incredible views of the mountainous terrain around here. In the flat parts there was a lot of agriculture as well. By the way, despite the many tunnels, this is not a high-speed rail line. There is no single definition of what high-speed rail means, but in general it means speeds of at least 250 km an hour. This line, however, was built for maximum speeds of 160 km an hour. With more tunnels coming up and nothing to see outside, let's have a closer look around the seat. In the armrest you find a foldable tray table that you can pull out. Particularly useful if you want to have some cup noodles along the way, as many of the other passengers had. The tray table was big and reasonably clean. Between the two seats I was surprised to find a universal power outlet. It's only one though, so you will have to share it with the passenger next to you. There are also footrests beneath the seats. Soon after, the train staff handed out the immigration cards for Laos. They don't issue visa on arrival at the railway station, so make sure you have an approved and printed e-visa. Speaking of getting closer to Laos, if you need to check some details of your trip online, there is 4G mobile network coverage on all tunnels on the Chinese side. On the Laos side, however, there was no phone service in the tunnels. The train did not have any Wi-Fi on board, but even if there was, it would probably be Chinese Wi-Fi, which is essentially useless to foreigners. With mobile networks, at least you can use an eSIM that allows you to access blocked apps like WhatsApp. The Chinese section of the Laos-China Railway is called the Xishuangbanna Railway, or short Yumo Railway. It stretches for about 500 kilometers all the way from central Yunnan down to the town of Mohan at the border with Laos. Construction started in 2015, and as mentioned earlier, the line was opened in December 2021. Most passenger trains terminate in Xishuangbanna, and there is only this daily train that goes from Kunming to Laos. On some days there is also a second international train that runs only between Xishuangbanna and Luang Prabang. It is worth pointing out that this section of the Yumo Railway between Jinghong and Laos was built as a single track. That means that southbound and northbound trains use the same track, and there are passing loops in between. 1 hour after departure, we arrived at Mohan railway station. This station marks the Chinese side of the border, and everyone had to get off the train to go through Chinese immigration. The use of phones was strictly forbidden, but I can tell you one fun fact. There was an open Google page on one of the unused health declaration screens. I thought Google was blocked in China? The whole procedure took about half an hour, and then I was back on the platform. Rumbling out of Mohan, you could see all the cargo trains waiting for clearance to continue. Cargo trains make up a big portion of the traffic on this route actually. Soon after, we reached the Laos side of the border at Botan railway station. Everyone got off once more to go through Laos immigration. This one also took around 30 to 40 minutes, and boarding was already well underway once I was through. Everyone also had to pass another security check before entering the boarding area. By the way, Laos has a different time zone compared to China, so my phone switched 1 hour back at the border. About 10 minutes later we were off, and I was excited for my first trip to Laos. We passed a few more cargo trains, and most, if not all, of the containers were from Chinese companies. In general, the whole line is a very Chinese experience, since it was built according to Chinese standards, which includes the stations as well. We were now on the Botan-Vientiane railway, which is the Lao section of this line. And just as the stretch between Jinghong and the border, the whole Lao part of the railway was also built as a single track. Which means that essentially you have a single track from Jinghong all the way down to Vientiane, except for the stations and passing loops in between. This is probably due to the challenging terrain that makes a double track much more difficult and costly compared to a single track. The Lao Section has a length of 422 kilometers and is the only significant railway in the country. For passengers, the opening of the line brought a huge improvement in travel times. For example, a bus between Luang, Prabang and Vientiane takes about 12 hours, while the train covers the distance in just under 2 hours. Until now, the whole train staff was trainees, and they also passed immigration into Laos. But at some point after the border, the staff actually switched to Lao staff. The automated announcements on the train were in Chinese, Lao and English. Half an hour after leaving Boden, we reached the station of Mongasai. That city has about 80,000 inhabitants and is the largest city in northern Laos. We stopped here for about 3 minutes and then continued, passing another big cargo train. For most of the ride we were still in tunnels, but in between you could observe a lot of settlements and agriculture along the line. Let's talk a bit about the ticket price. The train ride in first class today cost me $47 booked through an online travel agent site. The original price was only 277 Chinese yuan, which was roughly $38 at that time. However, the official Chinese railway app did not let me book international tickets, so I was forced to use a travel agent for an extra fee. We now passed directly through a mountainous area that looked quite nice. That being said, I cut out the many tunnels on the way. In between the tunnels, another station appeared that is only served twice a day by a slow train. The slow train serves all 10 stops between Boden and Vientiane, while the express train skips some of them. An hour and 10 minutes after the border, we finally reached the Mekong River. We actually had to cross it twice because it makes a loop in this area. After a few more tunnels, the river was in sight again and we approached the second bridge. Crossing this vital bridge was my sign to get up, since we were getting closer to Luang Prabang. We pulled into the station surrounded by beautiful mountains. As much as they are beautiful, I also thought about how incredibly difficult it must be to build any sort of transportation lines around here. Having this line therefore really is a great achievement. And it seems to be in high demand by passengers. About half the train seemed to disembark here in Luang Prabang. But there were also other people getting on, as you can also book this train from here to Vientiane. Once outside, I looked for an ATM. But it turned out that only one of them was somewhat functional and there was a long line, so I just used some US dollars for a shared minivan. At the time of recording, these shared minivans into town had a fixed price of 40,000 Lao kip or $2 per person. They are rather convenient as they can drop you at or at least close to your hotel. There is not much in terms of air conditioning though. Half an hour later, I arrived in the center of Luang Prabang. From here, I walked a short way to my hotel. There we are, welcome to Luang Prabang in Laos. The train ride here was okay. It took a long time at immigration on both sides. It was a full train, completely sold out. They do have a sort of secondary train that runs not every day, but like every 2 days or something. And that only goes between Xishuangbanna and Luang Prabang. Maybe that train is not so crowded, but that one didn't really fit into my schedule, so I had to take the one that's going all the way from Kunming down to Vientiane, and that one is like sold out every day. But it was fun to do it once. There were lots of tunnels on the way, but in between there were some nice landscapes as well. So yeah, I can definitely recommend to do it once, but probably I won't be doing it again. And now we're here in this beautiful room at the Nam Kan River, which is unfortunately right now a construction zone. I didn't know that. And my room has a balcony as well to look out over the construction zone. And the Mekong River is like on the other side. This room is quite nice. They arranged the towels in like elephant shape. And yeah, we have air conditioning as well. We have 2 big bottles of free water, and they have free breakfast in the morning. Just need to find an ATM now to have some cash for the restaurant tonight. I'm staying here for 2 nights. For tomorrow I've booked a day tour down to some waterfalls, and then on Friday I'm off to Vientiane. Will it be a train or a flight? You should subscribe to find out. I will see you then. Until then, enjoy your travels.